Blue Apron is the #1 fresh ingredient and recipe delivery service in the country. And my favorite part is the variety and how easy the meals are to make. How about meals like cheesy chicken black bean enchiladas with salsa verde, maple gravy smothered pork chops with stewed collard greens and sweet potatoes, spiced cauliflower and pepper with jasmine rice and cilantro yogurt sauce. Choose from a variety of new recipes each week, or let Blue Apron's culinary team surprise you. Recipes are not repeated within the year. You're never going to get bored. You can customize your recipes each week based on your preferences. Blue Apron has several delivery options, so you choose what you need and when it fits your schedule. Each meal comes with a step-by-step, easy-to-follow recipe card and pre-portioned ingredients and can be prepared in 40 minutes or less. I've done it, and if I can do it, you can. Very easy. Blue Apron's freshness guarantee promises that every ingredient in your delivery arrives ready to cook, or they'll make it right. Check out this week's menu and get $30 off your first meal with free shipping by going to blueapron.com/Mike and Mike. You're going to love how good it feels and tastes to create incredible home-cooked meals with Blue Apron, so do not wait. That's blueapron.com/Mike and Mike. Blue Apron, it's a better way to cook.
Considering home security? Consider this. For 140 years, ADT has helped stop more crime than any other home security company. The yard sign isn't just a sign, it's a line in the sand. It's no wonder 5 times more people choose ADT to protect their homes. Visit ADT.com to learn more. For license information and terms and conditions, visit ADT.com.
This is the Best of Mike and Mike podcast. Subscribe now by going to the Listen tab in the ESPN app.
The Best of Mike and Mike.
Good morning. We are back in better than ever. Mike and Mike, presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. The final Monday in October, and here we go off a crazy college weekend, including one of the great comebacks of all time. A dramatic NFL Sunday, including just about an entire team taking a knee before playing in the game of the day. And then the night came, and has this World Series ever brought the thrills? Golic, what a game that was.
Incredible. You know, we came off of game 1 with Kershaw and with Keuchel at 2 hours and, 28 minutes, and we thought, all right, give us another one of those, long day of football. You know, let's watch a nice, crisp baseball game. 5 hours and 17 minutes later, that's exactly what we got.
But I'll tell you what.
Wow, unreal, though.
It was worth every second. There's a lot of people who look awful tired in this building this morning and probably all over America, but well worth it to have stayed up for that one last night. The thrills just kept on coming. The home runs just kept on coming.
Sure did.
The ball kept leaving the ballpark, and in the end, it was a 3-2 Astros lead in the World Series. We'll get you to that. Let's do off the top here, and let's just go through a couple of the other headlines. And it starts, I mentioned the Texans, and of course we'll talk at more length about what happened with them before the game and all the events stemming from the Bob McNair comments that were disclosed on Friday. But then it turned into a show between Deshaun Watson and Russell Wilson. I thought these were supposed to be two great defenses, Mike.
Absolutely ridiculous what went on. And, by the way, you have a rookie in Deshaun Watson who is playing incredibly well this year going up against the Seattle defense, which did get a pick 6 on him, which turned out to be a pretty important one given the score of this game. But this is the 6th time in NFL history that opposing quarterbacks threw for at least 400 yards. That's right, Deshaun Watson and Russell Wilson both throwing for over 400 yards. For those of you in the fantasy world, Deshaun Watson got you over 38 points. DeAndre Hopkins got you over 39 points. And Will Fuller got you over 32 points. It was ridiculous what was going on there. But Deshaun Watson, even in the loss, first player in NFL history, 400 yards passing, 4 passing touchdowns, and 50 rush yards. Most passing touchdowns, 19 by any player through 7 career games in NFL history. First rookie NFL history with at least 3 passing touchdowns in 4 straight games. So great game for him, but obviously Russell Wilson was fantastic. He completed a career-high 9 passes, thrown 15 or more yards down the field, plus the way they both escape to make things happen. This was a great game all around, except if you were on the defensive side of the ball, outside of the pick 6 for Seattle.
Yeah, and it was one of only 2 games in that later afternoon window yesterday. The other one goes to Dallas behind Zeke Elliott, who ran the ball all over the place. There's another hearing today involving Zeke Elliott, so we'll see. I think the smart money at this point says he's going to play the rest of the season. In the last couple of weeks, he's coming on strong.
Yeah, he really is. He became the fourth player in Cowboy history with 100 rushing yards and multiple rushing touchdowns in consecutive games. Only Tony Dorsett has more. Tony Dorsett, 1983, did it 3 times. Zeke Elliott, Julius Jones, Emmitt Smith have done it 2 times. Sunday was Elliott's 7th career game with 2 rushing touchdowns. Only Clinton Portis with 9 had more with multiple rushing touchdowns before his 23rd birthday, and you could see the difference. What Zeke's been going through the first 4 games, he's 21 rushes per game. Now it's almost 30. Yards per rush, 3.7. Now it's 5.0. Rushing touchdowns, 2. Now it's 4. So after those first 4 games, he's kind of getting into a groove. And I agree with you. I think he's going to be successful in wherever we are in this court thing going on, where he is going to play the rest of the year. And that'd be great news for Dallas because he is certainly rounding out right now.
Off the top.
Last night, the football game, the Steelers and the Lions, and it was Pittsburgh with a win on the road. And Juju Smith-Schuster was the big story.
Yeah, he really was. 193 receiving yards, youngest player in NFL history. He's 20 years old with over 150 receiving yards in the game. Had, the 97-yarder, was it?
Yes.
Coming right out of the end zone. It was only 2 touchdowns in the game. There was that one, and there was a Bell touchdown as well. So you have this offensive output from Pittsburgh like that. Detroit had over 400 yards, so you'd say, boy, what a bad day for the defense. But I'll say this, quick note about this game, is that Pittsburgh defense held Detroit to 5 field goals. And we look at the distance of the field goals. For 4 of them, the ball was on the 16-yard line twice, the 19-yard line once, and the 1-yard line one time. That's where the ball was snapped for the field goal. So Pittsburgh's defense, they bend a little bit, but they didn't break. They kept Detroit out of the end zone.
And Juju Smith-Schuster, of course, having the big day. That will fuel the conversation about Martavis Bryant. Do I believe they're going to trade him? Probably not.
Calls coming in, too. Calls to Pittsburgh coming in.
You saw those reports all over the place yesterday, and Smith-Schuster has clearly emerged as their number 2 receiving option.
Off the top.
All right, the Cavaliers stink. When did this happen? Unbelievable. The Cavs are losing to terrible teams. Last night they got blown out at home by the Knicks.
Yeah, first between the Cavs and the Warriors. It's the second time this season the Warriors and Cavs lost on the same day. It happened only 3 times all of last season. The Knicks are 3-4. As you mentioned, their 4 losses are to the Knicks, the Pelicans, the Nets, and the Magic. What do all 4 of them have in common? None of them made the playoffs last year. First time a LeBron James team has lost 3 straight games, all against teams that didn't make the playoffs the previous season since 2003 and 4 when the Cavaliers lost 4 games in a row in April. So Tyronn Lue was livid at him for losing to the Knicks, and why wouldn't you be?
Yeah, he said afterwards the loss was unacceptable.
Off the top.
Florida and Jim McElwain have parted ways. So Randy Shannon takes over as the new coach, and I'll tell you what really aggravates me about this story on top of everything else is a lot of the players said they found out about it on Twitter.
Well, this whole thing started.
That's really just hideous.
This all started going off about Twitter, about even before the game, about talking that Florida was talking to McElwain's agent about a buyout, and then Florida had to come out and deny that. Listen, this has been a kind of you want to talk, you can go ahead and talk about what's going on in the field, but there was a bad relationship with McElwain and the athletic department here after their bowl win last year. You know, McElwain had some comment about what was a commitment from the athletic department to them. And a couple of weeks ago, we talked about the death threats he and family were receiving, and they were so school was looking for some proof, and he wasn't able to really provide any of that. So, and you hope that's not true. And if it is, what losers out there doing that? But it just seemed to be a very, very bad, toxic relationship that is now over.
Yeah, and again, the only ones who sort of get stuck in the middle of this are the players.
The players.
Who, again, find out their coach has been negotiating. I mean, they negotiated an exit. Yeah. This was mutual. Both sides knew about it, and yet no one decided to tell the players.
Off the top.
And then finally, a classic last night. Just one of the crazy baseball games of all time. And let's get some details on that as we go here, Mike and Mike. We'll make that off the top with us here on ESPN Radio, brought to you by Upside.com. Low prices, great rewards, 6-star service. You deserve a better business trip with Upside.com. 5 hours and 17 minutes later, Alex Bregman had his first ever walk-off hit in the regular season or the postseason in a game that featured 7 home runs. It was a solid single that scored the game-winning run in the 10th, and the Astros take a 3-2 lead back to LA.
Amazing. Houston comes back 3 times from being 3 down, and then they have a 3-run lead. They have a 3-run lead going into the 9th inning, 12-9, and thanks in part to Yasiel Puig's 2-run shot, they tie it up and send it into extra innings before, as Greeny mentioned, the game-winning RBI single, which seems odd, knowing that all the home runs. By the way, all the home runs, most home runs we had in the regular season this year, most home runs in a postseason now with 101, and most home runs in a World Series with 22. So, a lot of talk about the ball. Is the ball a different ball?
Some of the shots that were hit last night, the shot that Puig hit
looked like
looked like it was going to be a blooper.
Yeah.
I wondered if it would get past the shortstop. It went out of the ballpark.
So let me just throw this out there generally. If there is something a little different in the ball, do we care?
That's what I keep saying.
Yeah.
Biggio, when we asked him about it on Friday, he was like, I don't want to go there.
Right.
I don't think this is something that requires an investigation. Who would care if they juice the ball a little bit?
Pitchers, obviously.
Yeah, okay,
Justin Verlander came out and said the ball definitely feels different. He goes, for a guy that, has a baseball in his hand an awful lot, the ball feels different. I think it was Rich Hill that went the other way and said he didn't really feel any difference in the ball. But the ball's flying out of the park at a record rate this year and a record rate this postseason. So, as we've heard, I think it was Biggio or others that said the batters are swinging up now instead of down. So is that all fundamentally changed enough to have all these home runs? Or is there something with the baseball?
Well, I think it looks to me certainly like there's something with the baseball. I can't prove it, and I don't care. Once again, this isn't an accusation. It's an observation that some of these shots, some of these swings just don't look like home run swings. Yeah. And the ball is getting out of the ballpark. So one way or another, we got 7 home runs hit last night. Mike mentioned we've now set a record for most homers in a postseason and in a World Series. The Astros were the first team in World Series history with 5 different players to homer in a game last night, with Gurriel, Altuve, Springer, Correa, and McCann all going out of the ballpark. And they finish the home portion of their postseason 8-1. They only lost 1 home game in these playoffs, but they will have to win one in Los Angeles to win the championship.
Yeah, listen, you were wondering, could you get the same kind of matchup? Because remember, Kershaw threw great in Game 1. Keuchel even threw well, but, it was about Kershaw because it was the Dodgers that got the win, and neither one. Kershaw lasted into the 5th inning, gave up 6 runs in this one. Keuchel lasted into the 4th inning, gave up 4 runs, 4 strikeouts for him, only 2 for Kershaw. So they weren't what they were in Game 1, no doubt about that. Going to the bullpen, which, again, you would think would favor the Dodgers, and we as we've been breaking down the bullpens, but it was Houston 3-run deficits overall, 2 overcome by Houston, 1 by the Dodgers when they came back when they were down 12-9 in the 9th. So bullpen's not getting it done.
No, listen, there's some crazy numbers in this.
Yeah.
Clayton Kershaw the Dodgers had been 4-0 when Kershaw starts in this postseason. This was the first one they'd lost. We talked about how earlier in this series, having a lead going into the 9th inning, they never blew one, and they finally did. Now, how about this? They had won 113 straight games, including the playoffs, a streak that went back to April of a season ago. April 10th of 2016 was the last time they lost a game in which they led by 4 runs. So the Dodgers had every opportunity to win last night. The Astros had every opportunity to put it away before they did last night. But in the end, it all adds up to a 13-12 Astros win in 5 hours and 17 minutes. And one of the storylines here, for sure, is Clayton Kershaw, who is staked to a huge lead early.
Yep.
He's supposed to cruise. He's supposed to win that game. So all the good that he had done, I think, for his postseason reputation, at least some of that goes away. Here's Timmy Kirkjian.
The last 50 decisions that he's had with a 4-run lead, his team was 49-1. This just was not supposed to happen. We thought he had completely turned the corner here. He was on full rest. He'd only thrown 83 pitches, and for them to get to him the way that they did was just amazing. He had trouble throwing strikes at the end, and I'm just stunned. The Dodgers did not lose a game this year in which they had a 4-run lead, and they had a 4-run lead with the best pitcher on the planet in the game, and he couldn't hold it.
So what is it again about Kershaw, if we go individual there, his legacy in this?
It hurts badly.
Where are we?
If the Dodgers lose this series, then this start hurts badly because this is an opportunity to put it away. Now, here's my prediction. You tell me if you agree or disagree. I believe we will see Kershaw again in this series. I believe that we will see him let me rephrase that. If they get to Game 7, if the Dodgers win Game 6, I believe we will see Kershaw in Game 7. So I don't know that the story has been fully written.
The only thing I'll say is when we see him in Game 7, how long will we see him for? We probably won't see him for long, so
How long did Bumgarner pitch in relief in that one? And Randy Johnson, I mean, these are like legendary moments.
Well, what did they do in games earlier in the series?
Well, they didn't have this start.
Kershaw had a great one in Game 1 and then not a good one here. So I guess that's my point. If he can't throw, obviously, a ton in Game 7, because that's what I thought as well. Is he going to get another shot? But if he does, how long will he actually be able to throw? And certainly we'll see how he can throw. But you know what? Let's get there first. The way the Astros are hitting that ball, we'll see. They already took one in L.A., so they know they can do it again.
Bumgarner in relief in Game 7 of the World Series in 2014 through 5 innings. Gave up 2 hits, did not allow a run.
Well,
that's how he made himself a legend.
That would be something if Kershaw could come in and do that. But like I said, let's pump the brakes on that. Let's see if we even get there.
Yeah, they got to get to Game 7 before we can worry about that. And the Astros, let's hear a little bit more on this here. Here's Mark Teixeira on how the Astros have put this together. It's pretty easy to say. They just swing from their heels and watch the ball fly out of the ballpark. But Teixeira had more nuanced thoughts.
We'll talk about all the home runs, but there were still some great little at-bats here during this game. Guys fighting off pitches, guys having good at-bats, finally getting walks. We'll talk about the big home runs. But baseball is still played where 9 guys get about 4 or 5 at-bats a game, and the best teams keep putting those good at-bats together outing by outing. And tonight, the Astros kept giving themselves great chances to score because of these good at-bats.
I mean, what can you say? I mean, the Dodgers have been in position like last night to where they should be where they need to be, right where they want to be. Either Kershaw on the mound or the bullpen with the lead. Mm-hmm. And we've seen both strengths of them, Kershaw with a lead and it going away, and the bullpen with a lead and it going away.
Well, look, the ball was in Kershaw's hands last night with a 4-run lead. The ball was in Kenley Jansen's hands with a lead in Game 2.
Right.
And they lost both those games.
That's exactly right.
Which is something that isn't supposed to happen. So we'll see. We both picked the Astros to win this series in 6 games. There's no reason for us to change our mind now. It has been one of the strangest World Series I can ever remember, but I have a feeling it is the beginning of a trend. The top 5 hitters in the Astro lineup last night went 12 for 23 with 4 home runs and 12 RBIs.
It's just incredible. And quite honestly, again, the youth in this series, how about this? The first time in the World Series, 4 different players, 23 or younger, hit a home run. 2 for the Dodgers, Bellinger and Seager, and was it Bregman and Correa for the Astros? Bellinger's 22. The others are all 23. It's ridiculous.
A lot of young guys out there. Look, crazy game. It's been a terrific World Series. I'm sure the numbers last night will be really good. That game's on Fox last night. Pittsburgh-Detroit is on NBC.
Right.
I'll be very interested. We'll get those numbers, the television rating, towards the end of our show today. I'll be curious to see what they show.
One other stat was amazing to me. This was 5 hours and 17 minutes. So it was the second longest game by time in World Series history. You know what was the first?
I'm trying to think. Is it obvious to me? Was it last year, the Game 7?
It's ironic. Let me put it that way.
It's ironic.
It's ironic with the teams that are involved.
Go ahead.
The longest was also played at Minute Maid Park, Game 3, 2005 World Series,
the
White Sox and Astros.
Huh.
At 5 hours and 41 minutes.
I don't know why I don't remember. I remember the White Sox swept that series. I remember they had 4 good starting pitchers.
5 hours and 41 minutes in that ballpark and the Astros.
They play long. They play long games in Houston. There won't be any more games in Houston this year. Not for the baseball team. We'll see. They have to win one in L.A. to get themselves a World Series championship. We're Mike and Mike, presented by Progressive Insurance, and we'll have much more on the series as the morning continues today. Our guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line that'll include Jessica Mendoza. She'll stop by to talk baseball with us later, and we got Jeff Saturday and Chris Mortensen and Ryan Clark and more talking football as we go. Speaking of football, the game of the afternoon, Texans and Seahawks in so many different ways. Now, I was very interested to see what the Texans players would do before the game, and we saw what they did, the overwhelming majority of them. It's hard to say. I saw a lot of pictures, so you're trying to count. I saw one person say 6 players didn't kneel. I saw another that said something less than 10 players didn't kneel. But you saw it now. You know what happened. You're aware of what happened with the comments in the ESPN story that we read to you on Friday morning is the moment that the story was released. And both you and I and who was sitting in the room with us, I forget who was here when we read it, whoever it was, the second we saw the inmates comment, we all said, well, this is going to be a problem. And clearly it turned into the story of the weekend.
Yeah. You know, there was part of me that's such a cliche saying, that I don't know. It didn't affect me as much as it seemed to obviously affect those players. It just didn't. It's a saying that's used a lot. You know what the meaning is. I didn't look at it as, oh, my God, look at this billionaire now who's talking down to these millionaires. It didn't affect me like that. And then I started hearing they're going to be some kind of protest, and I thought, isn't this weird? I'll use the word ironic yet again. Players have knelt, people booed. They knelt yesterday, people cheered. People were cheering because they knew why they were kneeling. So they're kneeling at the same time, all the time, that people can't stand, but they kneel at the same time for the same reason that people can't stand, but they're cheering because it's for a different reason they're kneeling. To me, I don't know. I was a little like, okay, are we making a little too much of a big deal about this? So what did they show there? I mean, what went on? I mean, you heard they were going to peel the stickers off. They weren't going to do that. And then they were going to try and win. I mean, to think that they weren't, all of a sudden there was, are they going to try and stop it? They're going to try and win the game. I mean, I don't know. That was just me. You know, I maybe I'll get ripped for it. I have no idea. But to me, it wasn't that big a deal. It was a term used a lot. Me personally, I knew what the meaning of it was. Employees running the show. It's not the first or last time you're going to hear that comment made. It didn't bug me that much.
Okay, it clearly did bug a lot of them.
It absolutely did. That's all that matters. It doesn't matter if it didn't bug me. I'm just giving you my opinion now. But I started thinking they're going to protest. Players are going to walk out of practice. I'm like, really?
I think they did. Two players at least walked out of practice.
I know they did. Yeah, on Friday.
Yeah, correct. DeAndre Hopkins.
I don't know.
I think that it is, if nothing else, I did not take it as though Bob McNair was comparing the players to inmates, either in a prison, which I think he sort of mangled the more commonly used expression, which is the inmates running the asylum.
Yeah.
But I think that it is a general sign of the total lack of respect that the owners have for the players. And I think that side of it, the fact that he would use that kind of thought about the players who are supposed to be their partners,
but they're not.
I think would have bothered me more.
But they're not.
But in the NBA, they are.
But they're not in the NFL.
Right.
They're not. And I think the NFL does look at the NBA, and in all honesty, they're jealous of that. They're certainly of the money and what's going on. And they're not partners, even though, listen, there's no league without the players. There's no doubt about that. No doubt about that. I get it. But so are we never supposed to use that saying? I mean, is that now entered the offensive saying book that we're writing in this politically correct era that we're in? That one can't say that one anymore, or everyone will, or people will protest. I don't know. It just doesn't bug me that much.
Listen, you're certainly entitled to your opinion. I understood why the players were upset about it, and I think that we might be seeing a tidal change right now in the attitude of NFL players and the way they will allow themselves to be treated, which for 100 years they've put up with being in the worst situation I could ever imagine for people who are as important as they actually are.
Agreed. Completely agree with that. What are they going to do?
Well, I mean, you're seeing it right now. I think that there is a pendulum shift in power.
I'm just going to be... What did that do? So they knelt and said they were mad at their owner. Okay, now that's fine. You can be mad at your owner for that, but what's going to change? Well, come 2021, the players aren't missing. They're not missing any game checks. I'm sorry, they're just not going to. As much as you would love the unity and for that to happen, I highly don't think it's going to happen. So I'm wondering where they think the change is going to come from. I hope they can have this meeting and work together and get programs in each of the cities.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. I think that's what the players want. And they want the owners not just to say, listen, stand up for crying out loud and we'll do whatever you want us to, but actually do those things.
No, that's
actually
fine.
make a commitment towards social justice.
And it was going that way.
Well, I don't know that it's going that way. Russell Okung said that they sat there and told us they were going to do stuff, but they didn't really mean it.
We just went over the article you said was this greatest article in the world about how great the meeting was on Friday. Well, you just did that Friday, and now all of a sudden we're going to the one person, Russell Okung. I brought Russell Okung up that day, and you were like, oh, look at this article. This is what went on in there. This is a great article. That it was a great meeting, that a lot of great things were done in that meeting. Didn't we just discuss that Friday?
Well, no, I think that they were all very impressed with Goodell in that meeting, but not so much with the owners. That basically Goodell is listening to them and hearing what they're saying, but the owners are not. That the owners are not at all interested in what they're saying because the owners view them the way that Bob McNair sort of suggested. Whether you're going to take that term literally, which I think it is fair to believe he didn't mean it literally, but the figurative sense of it, which is, look, you guys just shut up and play, okay? We know what we're doing here. You guys just shut up and play because you're a bunch of dumb athletes who don't know any better anyway. That, I think, is the way a lot of players took that comment.
Oh, no.
And I do not have any – I'm not at all surprised that they were offended by it.
All right. To me, I wasn't that offended. To me, it's a statement that's used, but as I said, write it down in the book of now politically incorrect things to say, which we seem to be building a bigger book for.
The best of Mike and Mike.
1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed. Brett tweets, if the Dodgers don't win it this year, when will they win it? What will it take for them to get this right? I mean, look, they're playing another really good team.
They are.
It's been an incredibly close series with incredibly close games. But if you wind up losing this series and you're the Dodgers, you're going to remember that your closer, who was money in the bank, had the ball in his hands with a lead in the ninth inning of Game 2. And you're going to remember that your starting pitcher, Clayton Kershaw, one of the greats of all time, had the ball in his hands in a 4-run lead in Game 5 and couldn't hold it. Those are the two things you're going to think
You're
about.
right where you want to be right now. And, I mean, that same sentence could be used now. They haven't gotten there, but with Washington, right, which the way they're building and the expectations and many would say underachieving there. Right now, though, you just wonder. You talked about Clayton Kershaw, the starter. You talked about the Dodgers bullpen. Maybe we are now in that time of where offense is better than pitching. Right? Of the era we're in with we see all the home runs that we're seeing.
Or it's the balls. I've said it before. Yeah. There's no question the ball is different. And Rick tweets it here. I didn't believe in the juiced ball until I saw Puig's home run. There's no way that ball should have gone that far. That ball, when he hit it, I did not think. I thought that the shortstop might catch it. I swear to God, I thought the shortstop. You know, there's going to be one of those where the shortstop's going to be drifting back and the left fielder's going to be drifting in, and one of them will call the other off, and one of them will catch that ball. And the next thing you know, it's in the seats.
Yeah. I've heard more questions asked to players after the game of the same question. Did you think that was out? Did you think that was out? I mean, because they don't look like it when they come off the bat.
He's got one hand on the bat, and he's reaching out as far as he can. I mean, how does that thing wind up a home run? So, in my opinion, there's something different about the ball. And, again, I don't mean that in a negative way. I don't think it would be such a terrible thing.
I really wonder, do people care outside of pitchers and pitchers' families?
Well, look, I mean, in 1968, the year of the pitcher, the Major League Baseball's ERA was something insanely low, and there was no offense in the sport, and they lowered the pitcher's mound. I mean, they made an adjustment to the sport because it's not good for the sport if there is no offense.
Right.
So if they made another little adjustment here, I don't think it would be that different. They could announce it. You know what? We've decided we're going to change the ball just a little bit so that maybe they don't want the world to know that because it'll impact people's opinions on the historical significance of the standings. I don't even know of the statistics. I mean, I don't know, and I don't care. It just doesn't make any – to me, I think there are balls going out of the park that don't look like they would.
Let me ask a dumb question, which I've certainly done in the past.
Sure.
We see the baseballs right now. I bet somebody could get one.
And cut them open.
And I bet someone can get a ball from 4 years ago and actually see if there's a difference.
Well, I think it has to do with how tightly
I get
they
that.
are
Well,
wound.
we've also heard, are the seams – a
little slicker,
or not as raised, so the ball will travel further. I mean,
the story this weekend was about the ball being slicker.
Isn't that something that we could physically see and be able to tell?
You might have to do some sort of test.
No, I don't mean just. I mean, yeah. Well, I mean, again, Justin Verlander said, "My life is holding a baseball." He says the ball's different.
Well, there are balls that last night there were any number of them that went out into the seats. People have them now.
Go ask a lot of fans who have them.
Or the one dude who threw back his sister-in-law's ball. Did you see that last night?
Yes, I did.
He is now the great villain on Twitter.
Didn't she said she was going to throw it back as well?
Correct, but she should have had the ability. Let her throw the ball back. He's grabbing the ball out of her hands and he's throwing it back.
Yeah.
And that's a brother and sister-in-law, by the way.
Yeah. Ooh.
All right, let's get to Straight Talk. Mike and Mike. Straight Talk brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. How about that game on Saturday? Now, well, I will admit, I probably watched less of Ohio State, Penn State than almost anyone else in the country because Northwestern and Michigan State were playing a triple overtime thriller.
They were. What a game for
at
your
the
boys,
same time, and we got an incredible win. But I recognize that for the purposes of the significance of the season, the comeback win by Ohio State was the story of the weekend, and to this point, in its own way, maybe the story of the year. Right now, the Associated Press top 10 are, let me give you the top 5 anyway, are Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, Wisconsin, Notre Dame, Clemson, Penn State, Oklahoma, Miami, TCU. It was worth going on all the way to 10 because all those are significant. In fact, even all the way to 11 with Oklahoma State. And then you finally get Washington out of the Pac-12 at 12. So those are the AP rankings. So the Ohio State come-from-behind win completely changes things, and now we are one day away from the first CFP rankings. So, Mike, in your opinion, let me get a quick thought from you on the comeback, and then what you think it should mean.
The comeback was incredible. Twofold. One, listen, I was the one I sat here and said that I questioned two teams. Notre Dame, if they had to pass themselves into a game, because Brandon Wimbush is inexperienced with that, and J.T. Parrott, I didn't think it was, for Ohio State, was a great passer when he needed to be a passer. Now, Notre Dame didn't have to pass an awful lot. Josh Adams ran for over 200 yards against North Carolina State. And Ohio State did have to pass, and J.T. Parrott shut me up, that's for sure. 33 of 39. I mean, it was ridiculous what he did. His fourth quarter, they outscored Penn State 19-3. He was every bit as great as a Heisman winner could be, because he jumped, I think, right to the head of the class.
100%.
With that, for sure. Saquon Barkley got held in check rushing here. He got held in check rushing against Indiana. And even your team, in Northwestern, held him in check a little bit as well. So I think he's slipping there. I think J.T. Barrett jumped up big time. I will say, I think, and I saw Greg Olson from the Panthers tweet this as well, and I thought as I was watching it, I thought Penn State played not to lose. I thought they were playing not to lose that one. And Ohio State took advantage of that, and they obviously were playing to win, they had to come back, and they were fantastic. And I thought Penn State did not play to win that one, but played not to lose, and all the credit in the world to Ohio State coming back and doing what they did.
And so right now, again, in the AP, Notre Dame is 5. In the coaches poll, Notre Dame is 8. I think there's a real chance that when these standings come out tomorrow night, that Notre Dame is 3rd.
I don't think they will be. I don't know, and it doesn't matter, as we'll get into. But, it's always fun to talk about these because, you have 2 undefeateds, Alabama and Georgia. They could play one another. Ohio State, Wisconsin undefeated. They could meet in the Big Ten championship, so someone's going to lose. So, the first ranking, to me, the 4 that are in, I get, but it's those first couple that are out that could be in a really, really good position as well.
The one that could matter going down the road is where Notre Dame is compared to Clemson.
Yes.
Straight Talk Wireless, nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE networks. I will stand by this. I believe if Notre Dame runs the table, they will be in the Final Four no matter what else happens. Back in better than ever. Mike and Mike rolling along on this Monday, presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. They'll include Jeff Saturday in this hour talking football with you. Jessica Mendoza on the baseball. What a series this is turning into. Chris Mortensen today, Ryan Clark today, and a whole lot more. We'll start here with the World Series, work our way through all of the football, college and pro, as the first rankings will come out tomorrow night. We've been busy all day long. And again, 13-12 last night, 5 hours and 17 minutes later. And there's that old, people want offense. They want to see the ball flying out of the ballpark. I sometimes wonder if it's not too much of a good thing.
Right.
But one way or another, this series has been remarkably dramatic.
Well, a series, and again, year. We have a yearly record in home runs. We have a postseason record in home runs, and now we have a World Series record in home runs. So it is where we are right now, and I guess that is a fair question to ask people that are watching. I would imagine baseball purists aren't happy. I'm just guessing. Maybe they don't have a problem with it. I don't know. But as we know, when you get into the postseason, and especially your championship series, you're looking, let's be honest, the sport and the networks are looking to grab casual fans somehow, some way. And while I like the high-scoring games, I like the home runs, but I love a pitching duel. But maybe the casual fan walking by, if they see a score is 1-0 or 2-1, they may go, But if they see a score is 12-9, 8-7, whatever it is, they may say, some runs are being scored, and they may want to watch somehow, some way. I don't know. I mean, we'll have numbers to meter this out. We'll have ratings out there. The ratings, we both think, have been good throughout this series. We'll see what they are over the weekend. I have not seen those.
Nor have I. I'll be very curious to see last night as compared to the football game.
Right. The first 2 were over 10, and we don't know what the next 3 were. So we'll see that.
We'll get them all this morning.
Yeah, we will get them all. So I'm not sure where people will fall on this. Because that was the first thing I thought of, everybody talking about the ball being different. My first thought was, is anybody going to care? Or are you just saying, let the ball fly where it may?
I like this lead from Andy McCullough of the LA Times. The guy's found, this is his write-up of where we are in baseball. The baseballs are too slick. Or maybe they're juiced. Or maybe it's both. The strikeouts happen too often, and the home runs never stop falling, and the umpire is always wrong. The sport of baseball is broken in 2017, or it's rejuvenated, or it's somewhere on the spectrum in between. Still perfect for all its imperfections, still timeless for all its radical modernity, still agonizing for what it can do to the lungs and the brain and the spleen. That's really well done.
That really is.
Because I don't know if it's better or worse. I don't know if it's good or it's bad, but I know that you can't stop watching it. I think it has been a sensational World Series so far. And Yasiel Puig, who hit a home run off the end of his bat yesterday, swinging with one hand.
That he licked, by the way.
Said afterwards, don't worry, guys, this series isn't over yet. There's going to be a Game 7.
This is not going to be finished Tuesday. It's going to be Game 7. And I want to say thank you to the fans, support my teammates Tuesday, and this is not going to be finished in Game 6.
Well, I mean, listen, I would be stunned if he said anything else, that there's going to be a Game 7.
Yep.
And and the way this series is going, I hope it is. So we get back to like Game 2, Hill and Verlander, and see what can go on there.
Here's Justin Verlander with the ball in his hands and a chance to win a World Series.
Yeah.
Here's a guy who's had a tremendous career. Yes. And here's he chose to go to Houston. He had the opportunity to veto anything. He was a guy who you sort of felt was going to retire in one place, and then he makes his decision with years to go on his contract. This is not a guy who went to Houston just for, as a rent-a-player for the rest of this. He made a commitment to the Astros. He wanted to be there. He's a part of this. You saw him being a vocal leader in that club and that dugout in Game 2 when they were behind, and now he gets a chance with the ball in his hands to pitch his team to a championship.
Yeah, he got a no decision in Game 2, and let's see if he can close it out here. Certainly the Dodgers are thinking, get to Game 7. You love a Game 7 because then it's just everything in the kitchen sink, gets thrown out there. Hopefully it won't go past 5 hours and 17 minutes. Unless you're really looking for that. But
last year we got a World Series Game 7 with a rain delay and extra innings.
Yeah, that's right.
So let's see if anything could possibly top that. As far as what we're seeing right now from with all this offense, part of it, and I think David Ross has just been a terrific addition for us at ESPN with good analysis, was saying a lot of it is the bullpens are so overused, these guys are just completely worn down.
With the starters that are out there are good for a reason, and we want to take them out where they give up one hit, one run. We're so eager to go to that bullpen lately, and now those things are paying off. These guys have nothing, and sheer determination they're out there pitching. Right. And you got to give some credit to both lineups. These guys are grinding at bats. They never say die. Right. All those cliches, but I think the bullpens are getting overused.
Oh, that's it. In the era of the bullpen, your starter, starter can get 4, great. We'll get to our bullpen, where we got our pitchers,
and these guys aren't supposed to pitch like this.
That's an interesting take. I like that.
You can't do it every single day. Yeah. 3 days in a row. You have to let your starting pitcher is supposed to go, and he's right. With the way the offenses have been going in this series, the notion that one run in the 4th inning is going to decide the game, I think, is also a dated concept. So one way or another, they just keep taking these guys out and throwing other guys in there. So the element of surprise is gone. The hitters have seen all these guys now 2-3 days in a row, and as a consequence, you wind up getting 13-12, and the bullpen ERA in this World Series is over 6.
Boy, I just love and back up there again. Brandon Morrow, Dodgers reliever. This is interesting. Throwing for the 5th time in 6 days. I love the term. His right arm held together by bubble gum and duct tape. Started the 7th inning with the lead. Over the next 6 minutes, Morrow threw 6 pitches. The first was hit for a game-tying home run. The second, a single. The third, a strike looking. The fourth, a go-ahead double. The fifth, a wild pitch. And the sixth, a towering home run that sent 43,000 fans at Minute Maid into a tizzy. I mean, that's a description right there.
That's one of the best bullpens in baseball.
Yep.
All right, all season long. It's the reason they're here. But you don't take your starting pitcher out in 4 innings during the regular season. And so that's something that I think needs to be recalculated. Look, they didn't lose Game 2 because of that, but maybe they did. I mean, you were the one, Mike, who woke up the following morning, and all you talked about was, why are you taking Rich Hill out? Why are you taking Rich Hill out? Well, then the next thing you know, you got Kenley Jansen needs 6 outs for the save instead of 3 or 4.
And how about if you're able to push all that back by letting Hill go a little further?
That's the point. And so maybe now, maybe the series could be over by now for all you know. So we'll see. The series has had everything you could possibly want. There's nothing better than managerial decisions you could question.
Yeah.
What could be better than that?
So easy, isn't it?
Guys like us. So anyway, we'll get much more on the World Series Series as our morning continues. Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. Last year, over 3 million drivers switched to Progressive. Call or click today. Find out if you could save. I want to just finish up on the Ohio State-Penn State game because we only touched on that for a moment. And usually on Mondays, we don't do as much of the college because it's 2 days over.
Right.
And you had the whole NFL Sunday. But this game was so momentous, so remarkable for Ohio State to come all the way back the way they did at home. Their season over. I mean, going into the fourth quarter last night, Ohio State's season was over.
Yes, it was.
And Penn State was in the driver's seat. And all of a sudden, everything changes. How does it change? Well, how about to this point? 538.com now views Alabama as the most likely team to reach the college football playoff, and Ohio State second. They consider them the second most likely team to make the playoff. In order, the top 4 teams, according to them, are Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia, and Clemson. And it makes sense because Ohio State can't afford to lose one more game and still come out of their bracket of the Big Ten. Now, the question is, could they afford to lose one more game, be a 2-loss Big Ten champion with this win over Penn State, but a loss to Oklahoma, and still overcome an Oklahoma team or other one-loss teams to get into the playoff? They probably still need to win out.
You start to look at the one-loss teams and who do they lose to? Don't you start to look at a bad loss? Ohio State. They lost to Oklahoma, who's sitting there at number 8 in the AP. Notre Dame.
It was a one-sided game, though.
Yeah,
a little bit much more one-sided than the Notre Dame game was.
Notre Dame loses a 1-point game to the number 2 team in the country. Clemson loses to Syracuse, who is not one of the top teams. Oklahoma loses to Iowa State, who seems to be a big boy killer.
Now they've got 2 top 5 wins.
Yeah, they do. How about that?
So how exactly Ohio State is 5 spots ahead of Oklahoma is sort of an interesting thing to look at also.
Iowa State, the first number 2 or 2-loss team that shows up in the ratings in the AP rankings.
I get that Iowa State isn't as good as Penn State, but still, Oklahoma beat Ohio State head-to-head, and right now in the Associated Press, Ohio State is 5 spots ahead of Oklahoma. They each have 1 loss, and that Oklahoma loss suddenly doesn't look so bad. Having said that, those aren't the rankings that matter. The college football playoff rankings, the ones that will come out tomorrow night on ESPN, those are the ones at this point. Even they don't decide what's going to wind up happening at the end, but they give you, I think, will give you a much better indication of where the heads of this particular committee are right now. And I really believe, I'm not just saying this because you're sitting here, one of the big inflection points is where do they put Notre Dame?
Without a doubt.
I think where Notre Dame is right now is important.
I completely agree with that, but why? It's not, we keep talking about Alabama and Georgia. I don't care who's 1 and who's 2 in that. It doesn't matter. If they stay undefeated, they're going to play. Then you're going to get the question, would the loser in a close game still be in? That will be dependent on some other things as well. Notre Dame's they're either going to be in the top 4 or going to be right out, right? If they're not in the top 4, I believe they're going to be 5.
Well, the coaches have them 8th.
Yeah,
that's the point.
But the coaches, that means nothing.
I understand that, but let's just see. If they're 5th, I agree with you. They're fine. But the Associated Press has them ahead of Clemson.
They would be no lower than 6th. I think if they're not in the top 4, I think they'll be the first one out. I can't. And I think you could have Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, Wisconsin could be in the 4. I know a lot of people are talking about obviously, their schedule. The strength of schedule before the games last week.
We had someone in here last week telling us they think that Wisconsin could win the Big Ten, finish the season unbeaten, and still not get in.
But of the top teams, Wisconsin by far has, looking at the top 10 teams, the worst strength of schedule.
Our half of the Big Ten is decidedly down from the other half of the Big Ten. The best win they have is us.
Yeah.
The best win they have is beating Northwestern.
The worst one before Wisconsin was TCU at 55. Wisconsin is 78th. Their strength of schedule. So there's a lot of people
but they're going to play Michigan, and they're going to play Iowa, who's not bad. Yeah. Michigan's not great, but they're certainly they're a higher echelon team than the teams they've played so far. And they would get, at this point, it would appear, Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game.
If they're not in the Final Four, if they're not in the first 4, to me the committee is saying, you know what? You haven't played a tough enough schedule. You're going to be outside the top 4. You know what? Beat Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game. And
I agree with them. I'm not as worried about because I will say this. I'll make a second thing. Just as I said, Notre Dame, if they win out, will get in.
Wisconsin's in if they're undefeated.
An unbeaten Big Ten champ will get in.
They're absolutely going to be in.
If not, there will be a revolt.
Yeah.
I would be absolutely stunned if that was
completely agree
happening.
with you there. Completely agree.
And Miami being where they are, I know a lot of their fans will be upset. They win a lot of these close games, and they're unbeaten, but they're going to play Notre Dame.
Yeah,
so if they win that game, I would say fear not, Miami fans, because if you beat Notre Dame, you'll be right where you want to be.
And you're going to get your chance against Clemson in the ACC title game, right?
If it works out that way.
If it works out that way.
Plus, they play Virginia Tech, who is ranked.
Right. I mean, listen, Miami, if you run the table, you're going to be in.
Oh, that's actually the Saturday night primetime game this week is the U against Virginia Tech. That's coming up this Saturday.
And they've been winning some close ones. They've been flirting. If you look at, keep that up there. They beat Florida State, who obviously is 2-5. They beat them by 4. They beat Georgia Tech by 1. They beat Syracuse by 7. They beat North Carolina by 5. And they've been losing in some of those games. They've been flirting. So they're winning, no doubt about it, and they're undefeated, and that's all that matters. But you wonder if they're primed for a stumble at some point. But yeah, you fans, you fear not as well. You go undefeated, through and win the ACC. You're going to be right where you want to be.
And then there's Penn State. Penn State's last 2 losses have come to USC and Ohio State by a combined 4 points. And they are, I think right now, I hate to say this, I think they're out. I think that loss destroys them because I don't see how they get past Ohio State to get into the Big Ten title game. They need Ohio State to lose twice.
They do.
So look over the rest of Ohio State's schedule. I just don't see it happening. So this Penn State team, they really may be the second best team in the country, and yet they give up this game. They give up a game in which they have an 18-point lead against Ohio State.
Right there
Everything is right there. Because if they win that game, they can afford to lose one.
Right.
And they're still going to get in. Now they need Ohio State to lose twice. I don't think it's I don't see how in the world it happens for them. I really don't. I'm sick for them. I really am.
Amazing. Last year I
really enjoy watching them play.
They beat Ohio State, and everyone was trying to give a reason to keep them out. Some saying they deserve to get in, and they get left out. And here they have everything right in front of them with that big lead. And they can't hold on to it. So, yeah, that's a. But I agree with you. Ohio State's not losing twice, and they're not getting into the. Penn State's not going to get into the Big Ten championship.
That's pretty much what they need. So, you want to hear Herbie? You want to hear his take?
Yeah, sure.
Now let's do that, and then we'll get back to the NFL. Here's Herbie on sort of where his head is right now, looking ahead to tomorrow night's first rankings of this committee.
This is going to be probably, of all the years, the 4 years that we've had the first rankings come out, this will be the biggest challenge, I think, that the committee has had. Because you're right. You have Bama, to me, you have Georgia at 2, and then from 3 to about 8 or 9, it just depends on what you're looking at. I tend to look at how teams are playing and who would beat who if you put them subjectively on a field together. But you have to also penalize teams for certain losses. So with that in mind, I would give Notre Dame the nod right now, and I'd move them up to number 3, a team that the last couple weeks have been playing great football against USC. And of course, a big win today against NC State. Ohio State ends up beating the number 2 team in Penn State. And you got to put Ohio State, in my mind, up at the number 4 team. And then after that, there's Clemson, there's Oklahoma, and there's Penn State. All these teams, Miami, all these teams are right there on the cusp of having a chance to get into the top 4. Obviously, a long, long way still to go.
Yeah, again, a team like Miami can control everything because they're undefeated. So you just keep winning. You got some big games, obviously, with Virginia Tech, with Notre Dame, and then possibly if you keep going, an ACC championship game. The positioning for me are for teams like Notre Dame, Clemson, Oklahoma. Where are you going to do with Oklahoma? Oklahoma beat Ohio State. Oklahoma smoked Ohio State.
Yeah, and their Iowa State loss looks a little better now that they beat TCU.
Absolutely looks better now. So where are they? Those are the 3 teams I really wonder about. Notre Dame, Clemson, and Oklahoma. Where are they going to be if they're not in the top 4? Now, Herbie thinks Notre Dame will be in the top 4. So it was a nice win. I was more concerned for this game. I'll be honest. The USC game is just a great rivalry game. But that team, we have seen them struggle this year. We have seen the quarterback turn the ball over. We've seen them deal with some injuries. They weren't the team we saw running, at the end of the year that we saw last year. And Notre Dame is a really, really, really good team. And they took a team. I was more worried about the game against North Carolina State, where their quarterback had thrown 11 touchdowns, no interceptions. They rushed the ball for 19 touchdowns. Their defense was 6 against the run. And Josh Adams had over 200 yards. It was a close game, through halftime, and then Notre Dame took charge of that game. Josh Adams should be squarely in the Heisman race, as should J.T. Barrett. Should probably be the lead right now for what he did. But Notre Dame, legitimately, that was the game I was certainly worried about. Now you got the U and you got Stanford. They can't overlook Wake Forest, who always has a really strong defense. But that to me is the positioning of where we are tonight, not for really the 4 that are in, but the first few that are out, how they have them listed.
Yeah, it's tomorrow night. I know what you meant.
Yeah,
and then,
I'm sorry.
So we'll see what winds up happening. And again, Herbie didn't mention, and that might have just been, that was just a stream of consciousness conversation. He didn't mention Wisconsin, and it'll be very interesting to see where they put them. Because if you just look again at the best win Wisconsin has is against Northwestern. Now, we are playing very well right now. Northwestern is. But that's their best win.
It is.
So I'll be very curious to see where they wind up. Are they going to be in the top 5, 6, 7?
It's a clear message of if they're in the top 4, that's giving them the benefit of the doubt of being a big team and being undefeated. Or if they're not, it's like, okay, you're undefeated. You haven't really done a whole lot, played anybody, but, we're going to put you close enough that you get your shot against Penn or Ohio State, then you'll be in.
That could, if Michigan loses another couple of games, which we would expect them to do, at least we would expect them to lose to Ohio State in addition, then that would be their best win at the end of the season would be against a 4-loss Michigan. That would be Wisconsin's best win at the end of the – well, maybe Northwestern might actually pass Michigan at that point. So that could wind up being Wisconsin's best win going into the Big Ten championship game.
Right.
So if that is the case, again, this is so far ahead of us at this point. Yeah. But if that is the case, could you actually leave them out?
Could you win a title, a Big Ten title, unbeaten?
That would be astonishing, considering the Big Ten is as good as it is.
Then obviously their biggest win would be against a top 4 Ohio State team. If they would have to do that. But with that one major win at the right time, obviously.
Actually, what could kill them is if Ohio State loses again.
Yep.
Ohio State could lose one more game and still wind up representing that half of the Big Ten.
That would hurt.
And then
that would hurt Wisconsin.
They could knock the entire conference out. Ohio State could then beat Wisconsin. And you know what? Penn State could get in. And don't laugh at that notion, because that's what Ohio State did last year.
That's exactly what
Ohio
they
State
did last year.
got in without having won the conference
championship. Isn't it fun to
game.
delve into that?
That's the beauty of this thing.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Unbelievable drama in the World Series headed to Game 6 in Los Angeles, and so is Jessica Mendoza. She'll be there for our coverage, but first she stopped in here on about an hour and a half sleep. Good morning, Jessica.
Come on, are you kidding me? How do you go to sleep after that game last night?
It's your time of year, right? This is it.
This is when you don't sleep, you stay up, but these games have been epic in themselves, even for the World Series.
And for the fans of the Dodgers, maybe what will make you lose sleep if you don't come back and win this series, I've been saying it all morning, are the 2 missed opportunities. You've got Jansen on the mound in Game 2 with the lead in the 9th inning, and you lose. You've got Kershaw on the mound last night with a 4-run lead, and you lose. How do you explain that?
I feel like that's the one. Clayton Kershaw, coming in with a 4. I would have put any amount of money that there was no way the Astros would come back. I'm the greatest pitcher on the planet, but the biggest thing, and where I feel like is, I felt like he came out too early. I felt like that they should have stuck, and we've seen Kenta Maeda come in because the analytics, and I'm an analytics person, but the book says Maeda matches up really well against the big righties of the Astros, but it's Clayton Kershaw, and at some point, even though I know he gave up some runs, if you look back on it, don't you want your best guy, the one that's going to figure out a way, instead of your tired Kenta Maeda, that this team has now seen a whole heck of a lot to get in there in that moment?
Well, so that's my question then. What's the cumulative effect we've seen now going into a Game 6 with both these teams, but mainly with the Dodgers and especially that bullpen?
I think we're seeing the domino effects, especially of Game 3. Yu Darvish coming out in that second inning, Kenta Maeda coming in, Brandon Morrow, the two really the biggest guys that bridged to Kenley Jansen, and we saw Kenley Jansen tired too. But the domino effects of the decisions that are made earlier in this series are now catching up to both teams. I mean, think about it. Both teams in this Game 5 gave up 15 runs between the bullpens. 15 runs between these two bullpens. I kind of like it, though, because we get to where now it is offense, and it's not just put in a pitcher, get this guy out, put in the next. It's like, all right, who's going to hit, who's going to get the next run, back and forth. It was fun to watch.
Let's go back to Kershaw. If he doesn't get another chance, and, of course, we've seen Randy Johnson with redemption in a Game 7 of a World Series, and obviously a couple of years ago, Bumgarner. But if he doesn't get another chance, this was the playoffs that Kershaw had sort of redeemed himself. They were 4-0 in his starts leading into last night. And then, whether he should have stayed out there or not longer, he didn't. So what will all of this mean? What will the sum total of this postseason be for Kershaw?
Unfortunately, that he won't. I mean, he's a Hall of Famer right now today. There's no question about it. His Game 1 was an amazing start. Unfortunately, I mean, first of all, it feels like a year ago. Mm-hmm. But secondly, if they don't win the World Series, and because of this game, now granted, I think he's gotten past the fact that he was really an awful postseason pitcher as far as the numbers heading into this postseason. He has been fantastic until this Game 5 where he did give up 4 runs. And unfortunately, that's the one thing he hasn't done. Again, greatest pitcher on the planet, but he needed to be big in a big game. I hope that he gets another opportunity, whether it's Game 7 coming out of the bullpen, something, because you want to see Clayton Kershaw at least have another moment.
You know, we keep talking about how much the postseason is different in baseball than any of the other sports. It's, man, those starting pitchers. And then now, boy, that bullpen, that you have. But are we seeing, because of a record in season home runs, a record in postseason home runs, a record in World Series home runs, that it's not the pitchers so much, it's the sticks that Houston has?
Especially once you get further into the series. I mean, think about Game 1. Think about even Game 2 early. I mean, these games, Game 4, you think about Alex Wood and Charlie Morton shutting down both offenses. As you get into the bullpens now and these guys see each other, I mean, it's a different game. And then I think the bullpens come in too early. I love the analytics, like I said, but I feel like when you've seen these guys so much because they're coming in so early, give your starters a chance. Let them stay in there. But the home runs, I mean, this has been going on all season long, and obviously last night.
On balls that look like pop-ups, quite honestly.
They are pop-ups. Yeah. Carlos Correa's 48-degree launch angle. What that means is basically he got like right underneath it. We've never seen a launch angle that high. 169 feet was the apex of the home. This is my nerdness. All right, coming out right now, okay? We've never seen a fly ball higher in baseball, okay? And it was a home run. Now, the Crawford boxes help that, which is the shallow porch in Houston. But that ball should have never been a home run.
Well, look, I mean, and to put it into golf terms, which I'm very fond of, 48-degree launch angle is a pitching wedge.
Yes.
He had a pitching wedge into the left field seats last night, and I'm convinced it's the ball. And I was reading this thing yesterday, and you and I were talking during the break here. You were explaining to me a little bit about this new idea that the balls are slicker. And obviously, I don't know that, but it feels to me like you watch the ball, and the ball that Puig hit last night as well. To me, the ball is juiced, and I don't care. I don't even say that as a negative way. People think I'm making an accusation. I mean, Craig Biggio wanted nothing to do with this conversation with us on Friday, and I get it, because then all of a sudden the whole world is saying, oh, Craig Biggio says the ball is juiced. But look, if baseball wanted some more offense and they made the ball a little tighter or whatever it is you do, I don't have a problem with that.
Everyone's been saying it all season long. And if you've heard guys come out, whether it was July, whether it was August, and obviously now in the postseason, we've seen these epic home run, and we've heard that the balls are slicker, but really the balls have been, I don't know if you want to call it juice. It's a different result. And you can say it's because guys are changing their swings. You can say a bunch of different things. But if you get in the clubhouse, which I've been, everybody, it's a fact to them. And they're kind of okay with it now. The seams are different and the balls are different.
I was just going to ask, you're a baseball person. Would you, if we find out, they're different, would you have a problem with it?
It depends on if they're still legal. I mean, there's basically the parameters of what a baseball needs to be. And what MLB has come out and said is that they still meet those same standards. If that's the truth, because there is some variance within there, how tight the baseball can be. Maybe these baseballs are tighter than they've ever been. The seams have some variance in how high or low they can be. I don't know about the slickness of the leather. I don't think they have measurements for that. But to me, as long as they're within the standards, it's a different ball. Go with it.
I think, no question, it was Tom Brady. I think the balls are too tight, and I think that we got to get Ted Wells and we got to do an investigation.
Sounds over there? That's
Jessica Mendoza with us in studio. The Straight Talk brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless, best phones, best networks, no contract. So Verlander gets the ball in Game 6. There have been games in this postseason, and it's something we've almost forgotten what it looks like, where they gave him the ball and he never gave it back. Obviously, Game 2 was not that. What do you expect from Verlander tomorrow night with a chance to close out what would be his first championship?
I expect something special, just because there has been something special about him in a Houston uniform. They go out and get him, and he changes this team. In fact, Bregman, you notice that dog pile when he walks off, Verlander gets in there in a way, and Bregman's eyes just go to him almost like, Dad. That feeling of just like the guy that I feel like these young 23-year-olds are trying to impress as well. He's had an influence on this team. So it's not even so much that he's going to go out and dominate. I don't expect that. It's just the way the Astros have his back, the way that they do play. But keep your eye on Rich Hill. I mean, he's somebody that I feel like got pulled too early in Game 2. He had some sick stuff with his curveball. I don't know if he'll be able to replicate that, but he got pulled too early before I felt like he got to define what would have been a really great Game 2.
Completely agree, and it's what I brought up. I was surprised, but I know Eduardo Perez was sitting here before that game, the morning before, and said, that's the game plan. And then my thought is, okay, that's a game plan, but does gut come into play? And so I'll ask you this. if he's in there and he's in the fourth inning and he has 7 strikeouts and he's dealing, do you think they take him out again?
I think they do, and I feel like that's been – I haven't seen them vary from the game plan. It doesn't mean you can't do it in Game 6, but what I credit A.J. Hinch on the other side of doing, when Brad Peacock came in and he closed out in 3.5 innings, there was a plan for him to not do that. There was a plan analytically for him to throw a certain amount to certain batters and for someone else, whether it was Davinsky, whether it was Harris, to come in. He read the stuff that Peacock had. And granted, his slider wasn't even working. It was literally just his fastball. And A.J. Hinch made the decision, you know what? I'm going old school. I'm actually just going to feel that this pitcher is legit instead of looking at my book to dictate the rest of this game.
Mike and Mike, Jessica Mendoza is here. Final thought. One of those who played a big role in the win last night for the Astros is Yuli Gurriel, who, of course, was involved in the incident on Friday night. And by now, everyone is aware, suspended 5 games, but they will take place at the beginning of next year's regular season rather than during the World Series. Do you think that baseball got that right?
No. They got it wrong. They got it wrong. And I said this 2 days ago. They should have suspended him. And there has not been a player suspended during the World Series. And I believe that because of the stage that Yuli Gurriel did that, it's wrong. And I really highly believe that message needed to be sent. I said it. And I feel like Rob Manfred and MLB got it wrong because this is something that 5 games next season, I'm sorry, but Yuli Gurriel, no one's paying attention. No one's paying attention to that name in that moment in the beginning of next season when they have 162 games. They're paying attention right now. He had a huge home run to tie this game. He has been dynamic, 350 hitter in this World Series alone. The statement had to be made. More importantly for me, I'm a mom, I have kids. I want that message to be out there. You make a mistake, I get it. There's repercussions, and they happen today. They don't happen 4 months from now.
You know, when he hit that shot, the first thing I thought was, I said, Manfred can't be happy that he just hit a 3-run home run when many people thought he shouldn't have been playing in that game. What did you think of their reasons? That the baseball's reason said, we wanted salary to be involved, and he'll miss salary if he misses the games next year. We don't want the team to be punished. So first 5 games of a 162-game schedule, the team won't be punished. Like in the World Series, the team would be punished. You don't buy any of those.
We've all been part of a team. And
yes.
You make decisions based I made decisions as an Olympian based on my own political views and things I wanted to do, and I had to not or do them because I was part of a team. There was a camera there. He knew what he was doing. He might not have meant to be disrespectful. And this isn't so much even against Yuli. It's more if you make a mistake and something is offensive. And by the way, Yu Darvish was offended. He handled it very well, but he said he was offended. That, and so many people were. I believe that if that happens, I don't care if it affects the team. You're on a team, you make a decision, that's the repercussion. Just like George Springer decides to dive for a ball and he misses it. You don't not have a punishment because it affects the whole team.
Right.
That's what you're a part of.
Listen, I was surprised because I thought if you're going to make a punishment, what good is the effect of it if you're waiting to make it instead of punishing someone?
Do you think anyone
right
is
going
to be aware of Yuli Gurriel sitting out 5 games at the beginning of next season?
No, they're not. I was surprised that they did that. If you're going to punish someone, I would punish them. And you punish them right away. When
How do you punish your kids? Do you tell them, hey, you know what? In 4 months from now, you'll be grounded.
Yeah.
Next April, boy, will you regret
watch
this.
Out. Yeah,
Jess Mendoza on her way out to L.A. for all of our coverage of Game 6. And then, listen, I don't have a horse in the race. I hope Game 7 coming up as the week continues.
There needs to be a Game 7. I'm going back to L.A. and I'm doing it for 7 games. Let's. I mean, come on. This series, how does it not go to 7?
Where are you from?
I'm from L.A.
Okay.
John Brannon tweets at us, unbelievable World Series game last night, but lost me and tons of fans around midnight. It's Sunday. Why not start the game earlier?
Look, it's a yearly conversation.
Yeah. There is obviously research, and it's not a mystery, that the ratings of these games are at their highest between, I believe, 10 o'clock Eastern time and 11:30 p.m. Eastern time, and that's when they want them to be on. There was a time when I wanted to be the next commissioner of Major League Baseball. You remember early in the tenure of the show, Greeny for commissioner was like a common bit that we were doing. And one of the things I said then, and I'd say it now, is one of my campaign planks was all postseason weekend games will start in daylight. They'll all start in the daylight hours. But that's not going to happen because
it's not. The ratings
television
are better
networks want that,
exactly
and that's all
right.
there is to it. Now, are you robbing from Peter to pay Paul? Is there a generation of kids that are not, my kids have never seen the end of a World Series game? Never. And as a consequence, they're not all that interested in watching the World Series games. And I hope that doesn't wind up having ramifications in the future. I certainly remember watching World Series games that were played in the daytime in my childhood, and so do you.
As long as the networks are paying the kind of money they're paying and partnering up with baseball, They want to get the buck for their return, and that's advertising dollars, and they're going to get them in prime time more than they are at 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
And what I will say about Rob Manfred's decision on Yuli Gurriel, and we just had Jessica Mendoza in here, and she had a pretty strong take on it, and I respect that greatly, is I respect the way Manfred explained it. You know, whether you agree or disagree.
Do you agree with it?
I think I disagree. But I like that he got up there and he said, this was what my judgment determined to be the best thing.
Right.
He didn't put it on anybody else. He didn't say, well, he didn't make any, he didn't equivocate. He said, in my judgment, this was the right reaction. I understand that people will disagree, but this was, so he took it. He took it on himself.
Yes, he did.
So he's basically saying, if you disagree, you're disagreeing with me. He didn't say I put together a committee.
Right.
He just said this was my decision.
Right.
If you disagree with me, disagree with me.
Yeah, this is one of those. There had to be a decision right away. You couldn't have time to have some investigation in a committee. And it wasn't something that needed any of that. We all saw what happened. We all saw what he did. So you just decide, okay, we don't accept this. We don't want this. So you're suspended. It just, and I agree with everything you said. It just seems odd as we can't take that. This is horrible. We can't have this. This can't be any part of baseball. We'll suspend you next year.
Yes. Well, my point is you can disagree with the decision.
Yes.
I'm not saying I agree with the decision, but what I'm saying is I like that he didn't they had an easy out here, right? The easy out is suspend him now. Don't hear the appeal.
Right.
Those things can be arranged however you want them to be arranged. And the appeal would have taken him through the World Series.
And then he's still suspended at the beginning of next year.
So that would have been a piece of cake. I mean, you could have done that.
Could you really? I guess it comes down to, do you want to send a message or not? Because you could also, if you want to send a message, say, if he appeals it right away, say, we're hearing the appeal right away. We're doing this right now. I mean, that's what it comes down to. So by you saying baseball getting out of this, then are we really that aggravated with what he did? Are we
I think
mad about it? Is it really the worst thing ever if we're going to try and find a way to push it off to next year?
I think what we've learned, they didn't want to suspend him in the World Series.
Yeah.
That's simple.
Right.
You can slice that up any way you want. But what came through loud and clear, they didn't want to suspend him in the World Series.
Agreed.
So what I'm saying is you could have done that in a different way if you wanted to. Mm-hmm. You could have suspended him, said he's suspended for a World Series game, then not hear the appeal. And
I
then
think everybody would have saw through that as well.
But at least you would have given yourself some sort of plausible deniability, which, again, he didn't do. He got up there and said, this is my decision, my call. If you disagree, you're disagreeing with me. I respect that in a leader. I think that's what a leader is supposed to do.
Listen, I'm glad he stepped up and said it was his doing. We just disagree with it. So.
Correct. So, and you know who you're disagreeing with now. Is just sort of to wrap up the point that I was making. And then I don't know what to expect from the rest of this series. If there's one thing that's clear is you cannot be thinking to yourself, I'm going to get 4 innings out of Rich Hill, and then we're going to be good tomorrow. I really don't think that if you're Dave Roberts, you can go into tomorrow night with that mentality.
And we have no idea.
Don't.
Who knows if he's going to throw the way he did in that game, too. Again, 4 innings, 7 strikeouts. What did he give up? 1 run, I think, at that point. I mean, he was dealing, and they pulled him. And you could see him in the dugout. He wasn't happy about that. So I have no idea if he's going to throw that well again, and we'll see what we get out of Verlander.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Mike and Mike, we are presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guest on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, Ryan Clark, will be in here later in this hour. Our NFL insider extraordinaire, Chris Mortensen, is here right now. And again, we have a story that we are just reporting, and more, you're the one working on the story. That certainly, at least in its headline, is extraordinarily disturbing. I will give you the floor.
Yeah, Zach Miller, the Chicago Bears tight end, underwent urgent surgery after the Saints-Bears game last night. When you saw him dislocate his knee on that touchdown or non-touchdown catch, whatever you want to say. It was not ruled a touchdown. But he had artery damage in that left knee. It's a dislocated knee. Those are always very serious injuries. And so the vascular surgeons came in, and he was having surgery last night as the Bears were leaving town. We don't know the result of that yet. But when they do that, when you have the artery damage in that leg, the fear is that you're fighting in part to save the leg. You're going to probably graft an artery from the other leg to do this. And some of these dislocated knees, some of them, the greatest worry is the artery damage and the nerve damage. You know, we're not talking about saving a career here. We're just trying to save the guy's leg or save it so he has quality of life. Teddy Bridgewater, when he dislocated his knee, what did they do? They took him off in an ambulance off the practice field. That's how urgently they act in these matters. So we don't know the result, but it was a very, very serious injury. And as I was told, this is not about saving his career. It's about saving the leg. Does that mean literally saving the leg? there needs to be some clarification. But that's really what it was done. Urgent vascular surgery. Vascular surgeons, as you know, are and by the way, the skill of the vascular surgeons are such that this is not the only time they're going in and doing this on this player. On this player it is, but
right.
on just general population.
Let me mention two things quickly. One is we're going to show you the play here, and I've been asked to give a disclaimer that it is certainly disturbing. It's
yes,
one
it
of
is.
those injuries, and we see them, unfortunately, in sports regularly, where your first reaction is, oh, my goodness, the human body is not meant to move that way. So we all knew he was going to be seriously hurt the moment that you see it. Now, when you see when you hear the word "save the leg," obviously no one is expecting that. We have a newswire on it now. So, and again, the sources are telling Chris Mortensen. So Mort is actually here. But let me just read it to you the way we have it. Bears tight end Zach Miller underwent emergency surgery Sunday night in New Orleans to repair a damaged artery in his injured left leg. League and team sources telling Mort that doctors are trying to save Miller's leg, not just his career. Miller dislocated his knee in the third quarter. The dislocated knee is considered, quote, more significant than a regular dislocation, which is a serious injury. Sources tell Mort that vascular surgeons were called in an effort to repair Miller's leg, which included grafting tissue from the other leg to repair the damaged artery. He was initially credited with a touchdown. The play was ultimately reversed. Bears running back Tariq Cohen said after the game, it's a tremendous loss. He always gets us fired up and knows exactly what to say. We have to find ways to keep moving forward. So, Mike, that's
horrible.
what we have.
I mean, just a horrible injury, regardless. And then you hear where it may go. And I don't know if you know this, but you're the one talking to people. Is there how soon do you know something?
Oh, we
like
should.
this?
Hopefully the team will have a statement and clarify and even tell us that, look, the surgery went as well as possible. I mean, on Teddy Bridgewater, they came out, their trainer, medical trainer came out, and Eric Sugarman, and said, look, the good news is after surgery there was no nerve damage.
Right.
Now, in that case, they didn't deal with the severe arterial damage that apparently has happened with Miller. So I think we'll get some clarification. Maybe it'll calm things down. But, listen, as I said, they weren't talking about, okay, let's get this guy so we can save his career. We got to work here and get this leg saved. Now, over the years, you have, I don't know, let me say there's been 6 to 10 dislocated knees. And the kid, Jalen Smith, the Notre Dame kid.
Right. The nerve damage.
That was the nerve damage in that case. But a lot of times, the worst one I've heard was Napoleon McCallum, Oakland Raiders.
Yeah.
It was a primetime game against the 49ers. They're playing in the Bay Area. And that's the first time I ever heard somebody say, hey, we're trying to save his leg. And they were fortunate that it was actually near Stanford, where all the wonderful Stanford medical facilities are. And they did manage to save his leg, but not his career.
So, but Teddy Bridgewater is back, and it appears is going to play. Jalen Smith is back and playing, so we can wish for that for Miller. And obviously, we won't speculate about any of this until we get, as Mort says, details of what the surgery was yesterday. But you might have seen a little bit of that floating around on Twitter early this morning, and so now Mort with some of the details here. And again, we'll just hope for him for the best, and we'll see what happens. Mort here with the Straight Talk. Brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless, best phones, best networks, no contracts. Let me get then, Mort, after that with you to trade deadline day, which is tomorrow in the NFL. And the NFL is not like baseball. We wouldn't expect Justin Verlander to go from one team to another in football and change the dynamics of the postseason. Right. But with Juju Smith-Schuster doing what he did last night and everything that's happened with Martavis Bryant over the course of the last week, and I kept seeing scrolls yesterday, teams are calling Pittsburgh like crazy.
Really?
Is there any chance?
Were teams calling Pittsburgh like crazy?
Is there any
You're
chance?
breaking news to me right now.
Well, I thought didn't I see that scrolled on as I was watching
I know that Adam
yesterday?
Schefter and I don't believe teams are calling
okay,
fair
enough.
Like
and
crazy.
I apologize. I was watching games yesterday, and I saw scrolls on the bottom saying that teams have contacted the Steelers about Martavis Bryant.
Well, Martavis Bryant has attracted a lot of attention over the last 2 or 3 weeks for obvious reasons. I want to be traded. No, I don't want to be traded. Oh, his girlfriend says he does want to be traded, wants out of there. It was inactive yesterday because of the trouble he got into with Mike Tomlin, the Steelers coach. Here's the thing. This is a guy who we know has talent. But as a guy who also, his rookie year, 2015, they didn't play in the first 6 games. They didn't even dress in the first 6 games because they didn't deem him mature enough to play. And subsequently, he has had several suspensions, including a year-long suspension he's coming off of. The next drug, whether you missed a test or you test positive, next one is indefinite suspension. So teams are not going crazy. Let's go get this guy. And his body of work is very small. He's a talented guy, and the Steelers have not given an indication they want to trade him. Now, if somebody wants to step up, which we haven't heard about, doesn't mean it isn't happening, and offer something of significance to the Steelers, would they listen? I guess they would, but their posture has been no, and I'm not sure that we've heard a lot of activity there.
Okay, I just want to clarify. I can't decide if it was on CBS or Fox or Red Zone yesterday, but that was scrolling.
I saw that scrolling. Another thing I saw scrolling is
multiple teams. Like I say, it does. Adam and I don't have the absolute lock on the market. Adam might,
yeah,
but even he agrees with me that we don't have this intense activity on Martavis Bryant. We'll see.
Okay, here's another thing to Greeny's point. I saw scrolling that the Seahawks are looking for a left tackle to trade for.
This just in.
Okay, no, not looking, but looking to trade for one. We know they're looking for one. Is there?
Listen, here's where the talk, and I don't even want to call it speculation, but substance to this one is that Dwayne Brown of the Houston Texans, as you know, he sat out the first several games with the Texans because he was not comfortable with being there. And he was scheduled to make $9 million. He gave up like almost $5 million before he reported. We know his, what the problems he has with Houston Texans owner Robert McNair. He's made that clear. They played in Seattle yesterday. That's where he wants to play. That's the word. He wants to play there. That's what our sources tell us. Seattle needs a left tackle. So can they make a deal? The old rumors used to be maybe Jimmy Graham for Dwayne Brown, but Seahawks are on the record. Whether it's Pete Carroll or John Schneider, their general manager, we're not trading Jimmy Graham, but they can still work out a deal if they want to make it happen. So there's one certainly. Now the Philadelphia Eagles, because they had the injury to Jason Peters, they are certainly talking to teams about offensive tackles. Joe Staley of the 49ers was there yesterday. He broke the orbital bone in his eye, although he is flying home, so he's going to be okay. But they really do. The 49ers, as Kyle Shanahan said, it was going to take at least a first-round pick. That's a high price, even though Joe Staley's an accomplished left tackle. And I think the Eagles have to be careful here because they're 7-1. Remember they gave up a third-round pick in Jordan Matthews for Ronald Darby?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Darby looked good for the first half that he played, but they're 7-1 basically without Ronald Darby. So did you have to give up that third-round pick? They don't have a second-round pick. They don't have a third-round pick. Yeah, they have 3 4s and a 1, so they have to be careful they don't get held up here. So are we talking about Cordy Glenn of the Bills? There's a few other tackles out there that might be available. But yeah, teams are calling, and so I can tell you this much: we'll have stuff as it goes on, but you know who's going to have it. It's our boy Shefty.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's our boy Shefty. Because I'm not saying I'm not plugged in because I hear a lot of stuff, and Adam and I collaborate on enough, but I'd bet on Shefty before the Tuesday trade deadline tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern.
That's one of those days where you just have Shefty's Twitter timeline open at all times.
That's right.
And you wait and see what happens. Mike and Mike Mort in our studio now. Obviously, there's a lot of off-the-field stuff going on in the NFL. And so much of the attention yesterday was on Bob McNair and how the Texans players were going to react. But you guys also had a story on the morning countdown show about Jerry Jones being at the center of a movement of a lot of owners to block the contract extension for Roger Goodell. Can you enlighten us on that, and where do we stand on that?
Well, I think that the news there, we've had the discussion about owners, including Jerry Jones, obviously, because Jerry's a big name. So whenever you hear the name Jerry Jones, he's going to jump out there, that name. But that there was a conference call on Thursday among we were told 17 owners. At first we were told 15, then we were corrected. No, it was 17 or 17 teams represented on a conference call in which everybody was not invited. Because I talked to 3 or 4 owners who said didn't even know about it. But in that call, the discussion was pertaining to Roger Goodell's contract talks, and beyond that, maybe it's a good thing that we don't extend him and we start looking for the next guy. That's kind of how that discussion went. Now, everybody in that call didn't agree with that concept. Some were focused on the contract. Others are just disturbed about what's been going on with the league office over the years, some of the messes there. And speaking to the McNair point, in that meeting, as Don Van Natta and Seth Wickersham had reported, that what McNair said about the inmates not running the prison, which was a poor choice of words under any circumstances. And I had owners tell me, look, he was not speaking about the players. He was speaking to the league office, and Troy Vincent took appropriate objection to it. And McNair has admitted that was inappropriate even at that instance. That's what he told the players on Saturday morning, but they're not buying it. And I've also talked to somebody else who was in the meeting in which this comment was made who said, no, I think it was all-inclusive. In other words, I think
the owners need to be in control of everything, and right now everyone else is.
In other words, the reference may, whereas 3 or 4 said, no, McNair was talking about the league office. I had one say, no, I think it was all-inclusive of the league office and the players.
Right.
Yeah. So yesterday, obviously, this has been a very sensitive topic, and it's something every week. They then went out and played, as you saw, one of the games of the year in a defeat. But going forward, I don't know. There was supposed to be a players' coalition meeting today, but that's been postponed. They want McNair. McNair didn't even go to Seattle yesterday, by the way. He was not feeling well. So he didn't even go there. So I don't even know if I answered your question.
Well, I get, to me, one of the important questions is the league, it seemed, and the players started something good from that first meeting. Now the second meeting, and maybe that's not even true, but the second meeting has been canceled already. Now it seems if there are owners that are not sure they want Goodell back, yet they're all supposed to work together with Goodell to work with these players. Where is that? It seems like everything got lost there.
It's a mess. It's going to take some strong leadership, and there have been some strong leaders. Even Malcolm Jenkins of the Philadelphia Eagles, who's having like an all-pro season on defense. There are some players who are really showing tremendous leadership.
He is Doug Baldwin, I think, from Seattle.
And there are owners who have open ears to the cause. Arthur Blank of the Atlanta Falcons, I was told in the meeting that didn't involve the players, made a very eloquent speech about just partnering up here and listening to them. But others just still want to draw the line in terms of workplace rules, which Jerry Jones has spoken on the record about. But then there's this whole concept of we're having a different mess every year. One of the owners said you can't have these many messes as a CEO of a major corporation, expect to keep your job. And that was obviously in reference to Roger Goodell. That being said, 6 official members of the compensation committee, and Arthur Blank is the chairman of that committee. The majority of them want to get this contract extension done. The flip side also is Roger Goodell going to get tired of all this stuff and say, forget it? I don't have the answer to that, but I've heard them openly say it.
That was the quote that I thought was most interesting that you guys had was, you don't get to have this many messes and keep your job. It does feel like the NFL has one, and they vary in significance from the extraordinarily significant to not so significant. But there's one off-the-field scandal that they're dealing with after another. It's not even one a year. It feels like it's almost one a month.
It feels like one a week right now.
Or one a week right now. And some of these are all sort of intertwined together. Yeah. But so where does it go, I guess, is the question. Is there urgency on the part of the owners to make a decision on Goodell one way or another based upon the CBA not being up for quite some time? But there's all this stuff you're dealing with right now, and he needs a vote of confidence or something to handle it on their behalf.
It's hard to get my sense on get a feel for the pulse of the urgency of it. I mean, here's what we do know: we were told, and as it had been reported, a contract would be in place by the start of the football season. It's one day away from November, and it's not done yet. So something is obviously we know there's an issue there. It's just a matter of whether or not the compensation committee wants to just impose its will. Because, by the way, to oust Goodell, it would take 24 votes to straight out fire him. Okay. Well, 17 participated in that phone call, is what we were told. That doesn't mean all were in favor of ousting him. All were in favor of let's get this contract where we want it to be. So there's a lot of unanswered questions, and what is the urgency? And what's ironic right here is Roger Goodell is trying to be a peacemaker among the players and the owners, and the players are kind of gravitating toward him a little bit, but there was so much damage done in his relationship with the Players Association that you don't know how effective of a leader he can be at this moment. Well, that's about to unfold, I think.
Something that affects actual play on the field, and I'm sure Dallas Cowboys and their fans want to know, is Zeke Elliott going to play the rest of the year before or if he ever serves that?
Well, at 5 p.m. today in the Southern District of New York, we're going to have the hearing on the preliminary injunction at 5 p.m. I don't know that we'll have an immediate decision from the judge. But we will know if it is, he'll miss. If it is not granted, then he'll miss 6 games, or if it's whatever is lifted. Either way, we're looking at a 6-game period, and it's just as Zeke Elliott is coming off his 2 best games since he was reinstated, and the offensive line. And there's obviously Jerry certainly isn't happy about that. I will say this: Jerry has been unhappy about the salary issue for a long time.
Goodell's salary,
yeah, exactly,
yeah,
and other league office employees.
Yeah,
okay. But as it pertains to this, we're going to find out about Zeke this week. I don't think there's any question about it. I'd be surprised if we didn't.
Mike and Mort is here. And then there was the story, and Shefty sort of gave us a little heads up that he might be heading in this direction about teams.
Shefty did?
Shefty did.
Oh, yeah.
He gave us a little nugget.
Yeah, a little nugget.
He loves to do this stuff. But did he drop Calvin Johnson on you or anything?
That's it. That's what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Is Calvin Johnson. So how would you assess the chances that Calvin Johnson comes back in place for something?
I'll say long shot chances because that's kind of really, be honest with you, well, I'm not using Shefty as my total source here, but Adam's done the reporting on this. And there are some funny stories behind it, which I guess we may not have time to tell, but I'll say this. Listen, the speculation has been the Philadelphia Eagles. But once again, they need a tackle. They're 7-1. They have only a first-round pick next year and 3 4s. They don't have a second and third-round pick. That's not good. What's it going to take to get Calvin Johnson, who, by the way, his base salary is still on the books for $16 million? Calvin has been working out, I guess, but does he really want to play? Jacksonville is kind of, their ears are perked up. Chances are, I don't think it happens. Detroit obviously owns his rights there. I do know this, that there was a fantasy football transaction on our waiver wire as Adam was walking down the hall trying to nail this thing down a little bit yesterday. I won't tell you who may have.
But somebody took him.
You're saying someone picked up Calvin Johnson?
Somebody might, just as maybe a little prank to somebody who was trying to get. Because
I'll tell you right now, if it was Shefty, I'm acting on that. To me, if that's Shefty,
I'm not telling stories because he sent out an email to everybody last week. But I'm just telling you, yesterday somebody picked up Calvin Johnson. Somebody.
Okay.
And it wasn't Shefty.
I got to get to the bottom of this.
Just in case.
And then a final thought, and I enjoy when you're here seeing a lot of the people who are tweeting in this thought. For anyone who read Peter King's piece that he did with you last week, for those of us who've been your friend for 20 years here, and then there are many more at ESPN who've known you longer than we have, I was extraordinarily moved by it, as I know a lot of people were, and it is just from the bottom of our hearts such a delight to have you back here and working and being a part of this again.
No, thanks. Peter did a wonderful job. The podcast we did, I think if you listen to the opening of his podcast, Peter has a story to tell about himself, about losing his two brothers unexpectedly. And everybody has a loss. And by the way, the cancer journey, and there's terrible diseases out there, ALS and others. So it's really not, I didn't want it to be about me. I was hoping it just would give a picture of what cancer patients go through. Yeah. And so I'm not unique to that. But I think everybody's got their own story, and I thought Peter did a nice job, and I'm grateful. By the way, just grateful not just to you, but grateful to everybody out there who's even offered a thought or a prayer or well wishes, because it's very humbling to be in that position where that people actually care about a person.
Oh, we can't tell you how happy you're sitting in the studio with us, chatting with us.
Breaking news, which is what you were born to do. Great to see you, Mort.